So I tried to make it very palatable for kids. And I think of it as a jumping off point for families, whether you've created your family in this way and you want to read it to your kids, or not. I love the notion that, the book is all over the place now and it's in a lot of libraries. And my son's grammar school librarian text or emailed me and said, just want to let you know the book keeps getting checked out by like lots of different kids. And I was like, that's so awesome. Because I love the thought that some kid who wasn't born through IVF might take it home because he likes the way the cover looks, or, it's about basketball, or they don't know what it's about. But, and they read it with their family and they learn something new about another way that families can be created, So I think that's really back to the normalizing the conversation. I think that's the point is, no matter
Mhm.
how families are, families are created in so many different ways these days in particular, that I think it's important to let, everybody know, no matter how they got here, it matters. And, their story matters.
I'm thinking of some of the women that I've worked with who needed to use donor egg IVF. And one thing that I postulated was that in the future, there would be communities and support there for these children that come from third party or that are adopted from other countries created by IVF, that would be normal for them, and that we would be able to explain to them that they were so loved before they even got here, right? And to normalize it. And now, 25 years into this conversation, um, and I don't know if I'm biased because this is my profession and life purpose, but um, I feel like it's odd when we hear of somebody who conceived naturally anymore. It's becoming less and less of the way that it's done and more about like how different can you conceive and put your family together, and that really is more of the norm.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that it does seem like there's a lot more people, at least talking about it. And we always say, jokingly in Fertility Rally, the free babies, you had a free baby. And I'm like, my first baby was a free baby, meaning, you didn't have to pay the tens of thousands of dollars to go through treatment to have them. That's one of our things is like, we obviously we take infertility seriously, but we don't take ourselves very seriously. Like you have to laugh in these situations sometimes too. But yeah, it is interesting when somebody just becomes pregnant. Like naturally you're like, wait, what?
Mhm.
That happens
Mhm.
still?
I wonder, has anybody ever invited you, like a doctor invited you and Sonny into an IVF lab? And if
Ooh,
so, would that freak him out?
that's so cool. No, but if anybody's listening and they want to, I'm happy to to come to one. That would be really cool. I don't think it would freak him out. I think he again, both my kids have been so enmeshed in this world, since I do the podcast at home mostly and I do my fertility rally stuff from home, they hear me talking about this all the time. So I think it's become, again, really normal for them. So I think that I would love to take both of them to a lab. That would be really cool. That's a good idea.
Just for them to have an understanding of how tiny the gametes were and the process that happened. And, when the embryo is inserted at the time of the transfer and you can see it on the ultrasound screen and they say, oh, there's that, the spark of life or that little
Mm,
light shines in the ultrasound screen. And it's
yes.
like, okay, there it was. And each one of those represents potentiality, a possibility. Of course, not all of those are going to work, but when it does and it makes a person, and for them to have the awareness of this, it's just for any kids that happen to be struggling with this, which I have not met yet. Actually, the patients, children that I've worked with that come from in vitro, they are they really are glowing with such light and a spark that's in them that's
That's so cool.
like this all this overflowing love and intentionality
Mhm.
that was put into
Mhm.
them and their creation. And I love to talk about it like this because it's so jaded in the shame of we have to do IVF. But the community that I'm in are these pioneer doctors, and understanding how IVF as a science and a medicine has evolved over the years so that we have it as an option, that we get to do this science, right?
Yes, absolutely. It makes me think about I had Elizabeth Carr on my show recently, and I'm sure you know who she is, and maybe you've even talked to her. The first IVF baby born in the US. And she's a huge advocate now, and she works in the field. And she was telling me when her mom did IVF that for the transfer, the doctor actually blew through like a tube or like a pipette, she said, to do the transfer.
Hmm.
And, she's only 42 years old, I believe,
Too.
40.
Hmm.
So just to think how far medicine has come, in the past 4 decades, and like it's kind of cool to think what's going to come next, 4 decades from now, what will people be doing?
Yeah. So I've been interviewing doctors that are involved in like AI technology for in vitro, and what they're saying is probably in the future includes things like self-wanding to count your follicles. And then it's loaded into a portal that the doctor can see from a distance how many follicles you have and when to start your medications. And then there's all of the hype science fiction around like artificial wombs. But some of the
Wait,
things that
artificial wombs? Tell me more.
yeah, I can't yet. I think that's just something potentially in the future. It's very sci-fi right now, but
Wow.
that's what like like you said, 42 years from now,
Yeah.
right? But in these interviews I've been having with these pioneers, it's like they would let the women ovulate and then have to wash the uterine lining and then take that fluid, look under a microscope to find the eggs, and then try to fertilize them. There's just so much that we don't even know about that's gone into making it what it is now, where it kind of consistently can predict and we can put statistics on it and all of that. It's mind blowing.
It is mind blowing. It's very, very cool. And, I do have so much respect for the medical community that's, in this field. And I know that everybody is working so hard to, try to come up with the next thing to make it even easier. I love the idea of self-wanding. And we always talk about in our rally groups, especially once you're pregnant after infertility and that anxiety that goes along with that, wanting to go in for an ultrasound every day to make sure that, and
Mhm.
of course, people have Dopplers now where you can like listen to the heartbeat at home on your own device. But to think that like maybe even in the future, you'd be able to do your own kind of ultrasounds or, like look at the baby at home with, I feel like didn't Tom Cruise have that apparently like back in the day? I don't know.
I don't know.
But yeah, that's a really interesting notion. It'll be cool to see what comes down the pipeline.
Because I mean, imagine how fertility IVF started. It was through tubal problems and sexually transmitted infections that were making women septic. And now we can know the gender. We can screen out things that are going to be harmful for the child. And yeah, it's a lot.
It is absolutely.
We're very advanced as a species, right?
Yeah. And I do, I thank my lucky stars every day that this technology that we even have now exists. There's obviously so many children that have been brought into the world, including my son, that, wouldn't be here without it. So
Hmm.
cheers to that.
Hmm. Exactly. As a group, right? The worst club, the best members.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of those women will use an alias on their social media accounts, or they will view and scour and not like, and there's a lot of shame. Um, let's talk about that for just a little bit, because I think if it was possible to move shame out of the way, I think that these women could move faster forward along their path. I think that shame and or a negative mindset or a sense of scarcity and hopelessness, um, we don't want that to define them at all. What's going through your mind as I'm saying these things?
Yeah, well, I agree with you. It's heartbreaking to think that people feel shame about this, but I get it. It depends
Me
on
too.
um, what kind of community you're in. It's obviously more prevalent in different sectors of society. Depending where you're growing up and raising your family or trying to raise your family.